Welcome to Percussion Perspectives, a podcast by Henrik Knapper Larsen and Håkon Steine. Each episode of Percussion Perspectives features one or more musical artists in conversation about musical education, practice, and aesthetic and sociological perspectives.
Matthew Teodori founded Upon Line Percussion in 2009 together with his colleagues Cullin Faulk and Bedell. Over the past 10 years, this Austin-based trio has built an artistic profile which, combining elements from performance, instrumental theater, do-it-yourself technology and sound research, instrumental virtuosity and multimedia, is truly unique. In this episode, Matthew gives an insight into how Line Upon Line is organized. Furthermore, he talks about the transition from being a student to creating and running a professional ensemble, about the process of writing grants, about how they work with composers to develop and design a new repertoire that is daring and experimental in nature, yet in line with their aesthetic and sociological vision.
It all started with drum set for me. That's all I wanted to do, despite my dad's love of classical music, and my mom was like, well, when you want to do something, you study it. So I took drum set lessons and learned to read. But I went to a very small school, so like there wasn't a band program. I grew up in Virginia, and it's, I'm in Texas now, and the thought of not being in band in middle school is like no one does that. But in Virginia, it wasn't so much of a thing, and so it was just all like private drum set. And when it came time to go to college, I still hadn't really played mallets at all. Like I was learning to read, but I was I was very late on, because I didn't have that like sort of traditional music and school upbringing. And so I kind of like learned to read for college audition, which is a very similar situation that my bandmate Adam had. Whereas Cullin, my bandmate, was like from Texas, like winning chamber music competitions in high school, to play at PASIC and things like that. And Adam and I were like, oh, we have to do this to get into music school? Okay, we'll learn. So like auditioned for like a very small school in New York and got in, and it was like that first year of undergrad was just like, what is happening? But I loved it. Like I loved the challenge of it, and I was very like hardcore, like, oh, I'm so bad, I have so far to go. And I kind of like a somewhat insurmountable challenge. So it was like, okay, let's get better at this as fast as we can. And then when it came time to go to graduate school, I kind of wanted to go to a more of a well-rounded school, which University of Texas was and is. And you can, there's an orchestral guy here, but there's the main professor is like kind of, I guess, known as a marimbist, Tom Burrett, but he's very, very open-minded to everything. And so I had been really heavy into orchestral in undergrad. Both my teachers were orchestral players, and that was it for me. And I don't know. I guess I came to grad school really wanting to do the orchestral thing, but I thought it might be good to have the open-minded, like broad scope program just in case I like found something else that I wanted to do. And Yeah, it was exactly that, because just a couple months into into my master's degree, I kind of discovered the whole chamber music thing. There wasn't so much of that because my undergrad school was small. We did percussion ensemble, but it wasn't a focus. And my teacher was an orchestral player, so that's what I was into. And then when I got here, it was like, oh, wait, you can, make music with your friends, and you can work with composers on new things. And I think I was getting increasingly frustrated with the orchestral stuff, that all these questions that I had that for the composers were, you couldn't ask them, they had passed on. And so it was like, everyone would tell you how you needed to do something, or the right way to do it. And I just kept thinking, like, if this composer had talked to someone that knew what they were doing, like, this probably wouldn't be this hard, or it might be better, or it just, like, there was a disconnect in my head. So the fact that I could talk to a composer and work with them on something and have it be an interactive experience was like, from that moment on, there was no going back. So that was like 2008. And then I met Adam and Cullin. Cullin was at UT when I got there. Adam came the year after I came. And so in 2009, we started talking about commissioning a couple things and trying to play some concerts together. And the early days of Line Upon Line were more, it was more of a collective. Like, there were a lot of people, and we would just pick people to play certain things. But over time, different people didn't, there was too much work, or, they were busy with other things. And so it just kind of like, people just kind of kept peeling off. Yeah. And then at the end, it was just like Adam, Cullin, and I, and we were like, well, do you want to, like, give this a go? And everyone was committed. And so it was like, all right, well, let's see if we can make this something. So that's kind of the abbreviated history.
So you graduated, you had a bag of sticks in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
What happened then? How did you establish all the practical stuff, instruments, rehearsal space, technology?
Yeah. This is important. So the group got going when we were all still students, and we would rehearse early in the morning, like at UT. So the percussion ensemble room, or the rehearsal room at UT, is like very busy room. And it's like lessons are taught there. It's like your studio in Freiburg. Like, you can't just walk in anytime and do what you want. So we would get up super early, and, like, I don't know, I've probably glorified it in my head. I mean, I know we were rehearsing by 7 a.m., but some mornings I want to say it was even earlier.
Wow.
And, which is like, when you're in college or grad school, it's not like your normal schedule. No. So we felt like it was like one of those hardcore things. Like, do you want to do this? Like, let's get up early and do this thing. And so that was kind of fun. But at some point, our professor was like, hey, like, if you want to figure out how to do this, like, you're going to need to find somewhere else to rehearse. And that was a very, like, kind of loving parental, it's time for you to leave the house sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so we just got in touch with a local school that let us rehearse there for free. And we kept we had very few things, some personal instruments, but we were able to store them there. And then I think when they agreed to that, they didn't really realize how much we were going to be there rehearsing. Like, I think they thought they might see us once a month or something, but still to this day, we rehearse Monday, Tuesday, Thursday for 3 hours a day. So it's like, we have 9 hours a week of rehearsal, and that's it was in the evenings then, but it was same schedule. And it was just too much. Like, I think we were in the way there. And at that point, this is a couple years in, we had enough money where we could get our own space and we could rent a space of a warehouse from this woodworker, and there was no climate control. It was just like a building where this guy made cabinets. So all of our stuff was like it was getting super hot and super cold, and there was sawdust on stuff. It was bad. So but we could afford it, and it felt so nice. That was the first time in our lives where we didn't have to tear down our setup every night when we were done, because it was our corner of this room. And
right. When you say you had enough money, is that from pure gigging, or was it some kind of local financial support from the city or whatever?
It was both. We had started making money from playing, very small amounts of money, but like basically from the very beginning. I think it was important to us not to ever like give ourselves away. And, we might be talking about a couple $100, and I'm not saying we didn't do things for free, because that for sure happened. But I think we had this mindset of, if you don't get paid to do this, then it's just a hobby. And we all know that pretty much everyone does their hobby less than their work. And unless you're independently wealthy or something, you only need to work a couple hours. We knew we needed for it to be something that our wives, our partners were willing for us to do. It needed to make money. And, the first bits of that money went to having a space. We weren't making a lot of money at that time, but we were able to, every time we played a gig, we made a little bit. And that was what was really important to us. It didn't matter like necessarily how much it was, so much as you worked, you got paid to do it after the band paid for its expenses. And then a couple years in, once you have enough of a track record, there's different granting organizations in the US and basically everywhere, I guess, or every country has their own system, but you have to have a track record first. You can't just like day one say, I want to do this thing. You have to, they all have different requirements, but it's normally something like 1, 2, or 3 years. You have to have been doing something, and it doesn't have to be big and fancy. It's just like, you can point to, we've played this many concerts. We're an entity, we're an official business, we're a government approved nonprofit organization. Therefore, we can receive funding. And that starts very small. And then kind of each year you're in it, and they see, okay, this isn't just a flash in the pan. You get a little bit more. And that just grows as your budget grows. But all of it was very incremental, and you're learning how to do everything for the first time. And so you're making all sorts of mistakes, and it's like, no one ever taught me how to write a grant in school. I mean, I just learned how to play drums, sort of. Right.
Yeah. Was there nothing about entrepreneurship in school?
There is now. And, to be perfectly fair, Hakon, like, there might have been classes like when we were in school about music business, or there probably was. And it wasn't a requirement for my degree.
Right.
So I was just like, well, I'm just going to work on drumming, and then I'll learn the rest of that down the road.
In real life. Yeah.
I think now, if you knew you were interested in that at UT, like there are courses on entrepreneurship and things like that. But
I guess that's the hardest
like a recent thing.
Yeah, that's the kind of a hard experience for most musicians, going just that moment where you go out of school, to use this silly metaphor again, with your plastic bag of sticks, and you realize I have basically no structure around me. So when you get the hands dirty, right, and just start working yourself up again. I think most people struggle with that at least half a year or something, until something comes their way. And
half a year seems pretty quick. I would love it. I feel like I still struggle at times, because like this month, for example, in the next 4 weeks, I have 7 grants due.
Right.
And it's like, how do I, first of all, balance the playing with the admin side of things. Yeah. Because at the beginning, it's just I felt like school was so much like, how do you sound? How do you sound? How do you sound? And at some point you realize no one cares how I sound if I can't afford to like get to a place where someone can hear me.
Yeah, exactly.
So just the time management of learning your notes, and then doing the admin that was a big learning curve, and still to this day. I mean, I have some structure in place now, but
did you get any kind of coaching in this application writing, or any kind of did you go out and ask for a meeting and to present yourself, or like in person, or what kind of strategy did you have?
I wish I could say I was that organized. I think I remember really early meeting with Adam and Cullin where I was like, do either of you guys want to do this? Like, none of us were excited about the grant writing thing. And then they were like, I don't know if I got voted in. No one wanted to do it. So I was like, okay, I mean, this is important. I'll learn. But you know, what's funny is about some of the grants, you're successful the first time you write it, you get money. And then every time after that, you don't get it. You know, it's like almost like, what did I do right the first time I ever applied to this that I haven't done right since? And then some grants I've been trying for the entire 11 years of the group and I still haven't gotten, you know, and it's like, so it's both. And some of them you get every year, you know, like you apply every year, you get every year. And so there's so many lessons to learn of being persistent and trying to adapt and do your best. And obviously the panels on these grants change all the time. So it could be that I'm not doing anything really wrong. I just don't know enough about what the people there want to see.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think there are great books on grant writing and how to check boxes. And for me, I'm the type of person that's like a little bit more tries to get to a place of, why do we want to do this thing? Like, why am I asking for money? And sometimes you realize at the end of that, like, man, this project makes no sense. Like, why should we do this? And then other times it's like, you know, maybe we don't get this grant, but we believe in the project and we could find another way to get the money. So the grant writing process almost helps you like crystallize why you want to do what you're trying to do. And it almost, it helps you determine what is worth doing and not worth doing even. And regardless of whether you get the money or not, it's like, if you get it one way, that's great. But you could also get, even if you don't get a grant, you could get a lot of clarity. And there's a lot of value in that. Like, it might not be dollars, but it can help set you in the right direction or make you realize that something isn't worth pursuing just by writing these grants. The reason Line Upon Line is worth doing, and the reason it started and the reason it's still worth doing, is you get to make something that you're proud of. You get to make things that you're proud of. We started out very like what I would say in retrospect was it like a very traditional percussion ensemble. And I think at the time we thought we were very like adventurous. And at the time, adventurous for us meant like, I don't know, like you're going to have a commission piece on your concert and you're going to play Steve Reich's drumming, and that's going to be like super far out, you know, and what's happened over the years is that we've just become like less and less percussion people and more composer people. And like, I think early on we were just like percussionists are people, and we feel like we need to play these great classic masterpieces because they need to be preserved and they're so good, and who else is going to play them? There's only these, you know, couple other people doing this stuff. These pieces need to be, you know, yeah, they just need to be out there as important. And, you know, now we like, the other end of that spectrum is like, we barely play any music that wasn't written for us, for one. Yeah. And two is like, if we do play something by a piece that isn't written for us, if we don't know the composer, like we're pretty unmotivated. Yeah. It's like, we've almost completely flipped, and yeah, there is all this great music that maybe isn't getting played all the time, but it's become way more personal for us to like play music by our friends and the people that we've spent a lot of time making something with or struggling with something with. And because you just buy in more, like there's way more of a commitment on us, like from us, when we know this person and have hung out with this person. And so obviously percussionists aren't, yeah, I mean, there are percussionists that write music, but I think the reason this trajectory has happened is like the composers are the ones that are making the music. So like, we're just kind of naturally migrated over to the makers in the music world. And it's not that like, we don't enjoy hanging out with percussionists. It's just that like, or playing this great percussion music. It's just like kind of more about the relationships in the building and the making of the thing. That is what motivates us now. And so just by nature, it's like, well, that's how we're spending our time now. And the amazing thing about composers is like, it's just, it feels like it's an amazing sense of community. Like they're very supportive of one another. But the other thing is that they're like, so to me, they're so brave. Like you're willing to try things. It's like, if I get on stage and play a piece and it doesn't go great, like I did my job, but maybe, you know, and I played okay, but the piece didn't come across well. But like, that's not really on me. You know, it's like, I did what I was told to do. Yeah. Like, obviously there's part of it. Like you need to sell a piece or whatever. I'm not discounting that, but like composers, they just like put themselves out there with this idea that may or may not work. And they, you know, you sense this sort of, there's so much like of themselves wrapped up in this thing. And if it doesn't go well, like ultimately it's them on the line, and yet they do it time and again. It's just something that I don't feel like brave enough to do myself. Right. And I'm happy to be the middleman. And that's like where I feel comfortable. But I'm just like generally very inspired by composers' willingness to put themselves out there in such a brave way all the time.
A couple of things come to mind that I'd like to ask you about. Like when you say you really rather work with your friends, and it seems like you kind of build your own Upon Line community, as it were. I guess you make new friends all the time in that sense. You contact somebody because of their artistic skills, not because of their social skills, right? So you're broadening your community in terms of professional artistic relationships. Can you say something if it resonates with you? If your process of choosing a composer, a new friend, as it were, has changed in the past years?
Definitely, like the way we have gone about working with or asking the composers that we'd like to work with if they'd like to work with us has changed. And it used to go way more sort of kind of like what you're describing, esoterically, like you're thinking of everything or everyone just is kind of like this aisle on a like a store or something, and it's like, oh, I just go pick the composer that I want off and see if they write back to me. And what's become much more important for us now is recommendations. So when we talk to a composer that, or when we've worked with a composer that we really enjoy, like the whole experience from start to finish, not just the piece, it's actually, for me, just as a side note, the actual like end product of a piece has become way less important to me than the relationship with the composer. Like,
interesting,
because composers, like, I don't know if you want to think about the most efficient composer, the composer that, like, if they write 10 pieces, maybe 5 of them are great. It's just the odds are that a composer's best piece is going to be their percussion trio, or it's just like impossible. It's impossible odds, if they're happy with it, that's another thing entirely. But I used to be like, well, if the piece isn't good or serviceable to us, then it wasn't a good collaboration. And now it's just like, man, did you enjoy the experience? Like, did you learn something from the experience? And whether you're going to play this piece 100 more times or 1 more time is sort of like, it's not unimportant. It's just further down on the list of priorities. But anyway, when we've enjoyed working with a composer, I think we, at whenever we're hanging out afterwards, it's just like, who are your friends that you think would make something good for us that we would enjoy working with? And it's like, I can't think of the last piece that we didn't commission like that. It's been that way for a number of years now. And it's just like, who does your friend recommend? Like, I mean, which of your friends would you recommend? And now something that we've been doing recently a lot to kind of talk about the diversity issue is like trying to ask for those recommendations of like, do you have any female composer friends that you would recommend? And that's something that we've been working on for a number of years. And now it's been like, well, now, we mostly work with white composers, or that's what we've done in the past. We need to do better. So it's like, which of your composer, like friends of color, like would you recommend to us? And for us, it's an education. And I can sit here and try to feel badly because we haven't done a great job with that in the past. But I think what we realized last summer is it takes us 5 to 7 years to get pieces from people on average. Like, we're going to start this today, and it might be a number of years before anyone thinks we've done anything about this. But the fact of the matter is that, like, we recognize that we haven't done great, and we're changing the way that we go about doing that. But it is still based on recommendations.
What stuff are you keen on with a new project? So sub question, is there stuff you would rather not do if someone proposes it? Or what kind of stuff do you really invite what kind of path do you invite the composer on when they get to your studio for the first time?
Oh man, that's such a lovely question to be asked. Without getting too specific on things, what I'm really proud of with Upon Line, and particularly with Adam and Cullin, and just having found 2 people that are this way, that like the 3 of us think very alike. I think we really value being asked to do things that we haven't done before. We really want to be shown new sounds. We don't want to be the ones that are like showing composers the sounds. Like, there's always an element of that, but we want, and like sometimes picking the perfect sound that's very much our job. But I'm talking about like, just we want to be taught things, and I think when we work with composers, we view that as our continuing education in sound. It's like, just teach us new things, not just teach us new things, but we really, really enjoy that. And there's this level of like challenge that I think we really appreciate. We probably only get it like once or twice a year, where something feels like we can't do it right now, but there's this small glimmer of hope that we will be able to do it like by the time we have to play it. And that is like the perfect place for us. Because if something is like sight readable, or I don't know, it's probably a fault of ours, but we just kind of like check out a little bit.
Yeah.
And if something is impossible, then we're like, oh man, you gotta change this. Like, I don't think this is going to be a thing. But if it's like new and just hard enough where like you don't really have enough time to do it, but you really want to try because you believe in it.
Yeah.
Then that's like, man, that is the best job for the next however many months you have. Right. And I think Adam, Cullin, and I all feel like the same way about that, which is so like, that's just kind of, I don't know, maybe it's not that rare. But yeah, we just like teach us something new. That's our thing.
It means you put a lot of trust in the composer's message to you, or the composer's impulse to you, which is a kind of beautiful thing. It's maybe against a trend that I feel with many people of our generation, that the performer wants a more significant role than maybe what used to be the case, right? There's the whole negotiation issue between composer and performer today, that the score isn't written in stone, and it's not like we surround ourselves with Wagners and Beethovens anymore. And anyways, the whole debate about being truthful to the score and the text of the music and everything, it's more fluid right now, and it's a more democratic process of negotiation between the agents, right? Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, you have a lot of competence that you bring to the table in the collaboration, and what I get from you now is you're kind of just waiting for them to pull out the goodies, and you're not giving things away from your side.
No, like, I think when you walk into our studio, it's like, okay, things might occur to you, but not all the composers that we work with, have a chance to come here before they start writing, or, some of them don't, can't ever really make it here. I mean, we try not to make that happen, but it happens. I think we view it very much as an exchange. I think this whole idea of, like, if we have a commission that you paid the composer, and then you have the due date for the piece, and between the time you pay and the time you get the piece, like, you never talk to this person. I think that for us is like sad. And we want not that they like check in with us about everything, but it's just nice to be a part. Or, hey, can we play some sounds for you? Or or the composer has ideas for things they'd like to try, and we're happy to send things. I think just what's interesting is for us is like that first 5 minutes of hearing a composer's idea for what they'd like to do for us. Like, in our brains, we're thinking, okay, how new and different is this going to be for us? Mm-hmm. And the more new and different it is, it's like the more exciting. Yeah. And then it's not that we're just like, oh, we check out. If it's like, okay, you're going to be using wood planks and metal bars, it's like, okay, like, those are good instruments. Yeah. We play wood planks and metal bars, but it's like, we might just like, I think we just think of it as like, we can tell you what we've learned the last 10 years for sure. And you can tell us what you're thinking. And when you meet in the middle and like iron out the differences, that's like, I think both parties have contributed what they like, kind of the maximum that they can contribute to something.
Right. Yeah.
But if it's all one-sided, I mean, sometimes I feel like this has probably happened to you, Hakon. Sometimes I feel like we straight up write the piece. Like, we do everything but put the notes on paper. It's like, what else do you want us to do? Yeah. Like, and then other times it's, man, we don't own any of the things that you want. Like, all right, let's see how we get this stuff. And that to us is like the spectrum we prefer.
Because you do a lot of cool experimental stuff with electronics, with weird inventions that you hardly could come up with yourself, right? This is kind of laboratorial stuff And can you also say something about how that process is happening when you go into a piece that is totally new, a new performance technique, a new world of technology that you haven't never discovered? Like, tell us about that.
Yeah. This is Adam's department. Adam is like a tinkerer through and through. He loves building things. He spends his spare time building stuff. And a number of years ago, we wanted to do stuff with electronics, and it felt so like such a hurdle. Like, how do we do this? And Adam really took that on and has just like evolved so much. Like, he's just gone deeper and deeper and deeper as the years have gone on, and it's kind of this black hole for him. And he's now into all this Euro rack modular synth stuff, which, he describes it as, if you're into electronics, that's the logical place you will end up.
Yeah.
At the end of it, it's like you will get there eventually if you're into it enough. And he's there now, and so it's just kind of like, I think that has opened up a whole new dimension, because you realize, acoustic instruments can go so far, and we don't know everything that their acoustic instruments are capable of. Like, I walked into Christian's studio when we were there, and, he's got acoustic instruments that'll just blow your mind. But at the end of the day, it's like, oh man, this is just completely uncharted or kind of endless field. And Adam is like really excited by that.
So how does that happen? Like, do you need a special budget for that? Everything you haven't got, and there's a new piece coming on, you need X amount of channels, X amount of electronics. How do you go about doing that, financing that?
Yeah, we have every year we set aside part of our budget for gear and electronics, and as needs arise, we dip into that budget. It's never big enough, but there's also a really amazing place in Austin, and we probably take it for granted way too much, but there's this rental place in town that just seems to have everything always. And so if we can't afford it, it's very easy for us to rent something for a few months to do a project. And then if we know we're going to do it again, straight away, we think about purchasing if we can. But if we can't, it's like, we have access to so much from this place. That's one of the reasons it's great being in Austin and having it be such a music town, is you have a store like this place called Rock and Roll Rentals that you can just get anything you need from for very cheap at all times.
Make a buck. Get a job. Start a school. Go to the gym. Enter sweepstakes. Be happy. Be in love. Go into finance. Get a P.O. box. Get a passport. Get a room. Get lost. Climb rocks. Bake cookies. Fry asparagus. Roast beets. Make beats. Feel the beat. Go to the moon. Go to the store. Go to hell. Go home. Go to sleep. Wake up! Wear eye protection. Make a cake. Make a movie. Make a video game. Make a beautiful cake. Make an ugly cake. Make an interesting cake. Make a delightful tune. Make a funnel out of paper. Make a function in Python. Make a riddle out of your favorite fruit. Make a delightful cake. Make a catchy rhythm. Make a greeting card. Make a beautiful cake. Make a fancy 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 cake. Make a happy cake. Make a wedding cake. Make a sushi cake. Make me. Make me. Make a blueberry pie. Make a dance.